Long read STBXW said I should have never gone through her phone and it was like opening Pandora's box. January 28, D-Day, WS took a day off from work. I called her from my job and asked what she was going to be doing that day. She told me she was going to breakfast with her friend and boss, Courtney. It seemed unusual, and that was the first red flag. When I got home from work later that evening, she had gotten her nails done, which was also unusual for her. I asked her how much the manicure cost and she answered a little too quickly. Courtney paid for it and looked away, almost as if in embarrassment. That was red flag number 2. I waited until she went to sleep that evening and went through her phone and found sexually explicit texts and found out that she and AP had gone to breakfast, gotten mani/pedicures, and apparently gotten a cheap motel room. My soul was absolutely crushed. For about a month and a half after D-Day I was averaging about an hour or 2 of sleep every night, and I never had any appetite. It felt like my brain was constantly in fight or flight mode. She apologized for hurting me on several occasions but continued to see him anyway, which was super confusing to me. I had taken our 9-year-old daughter and moved out, and eventually I started feeling a little bit better emotionally once I accepted that she was moving on. Then sometime in mid-March, she had a little too much to drink one night and invited me over because her AP was out of town. I couldn't resist. When she fell asleep I went through her phone again. She had changed her password, but I saw her do it out of the corner of my eye. What I found this time made me want to die. The texts I found were 1,000 times worse than finding out she was having an affair in the first place. In addition to no less than 20 nudes that she had sent him, she only sent me like 2 in the 18 years we were married. It turned out that AP had gotten her into hardcore bondage and domination. The texts he was sending her were some of the most NSFW material you could possibly imagine. And she was into it. One of the tamer ones was, "By the time I'm done with you tonight, you are going to be calling me sir." I was beyond devastated all over again. When I confronted her this time around, she told me that I shouldn't have gone through her phone and I invaded her privacy. She said going through her phone was like opening Pandora's box. So, yes, I had already left her, but we were still talking, and as pathetic as it sounds, I still had hopes that she would pick me over him. And technically we were still married while all this was going on. So I started losing weight and losing sleep again, only this time the nightmares were even worse and I now had about a dozen new triggers. Thoughts about another man tying up and dominating my wife consumed major portions of my days. Eventually, I started sleeping and eating and getting better, again. Then one day out of the blue I got a text from her that said, "If I stop seeing him, can we try to work on our relationship?" I was absolutely stunned and began grilling her. What happened? Did he take it too far this time? Did you forget your safe word? According to her, she just really missed me and realized how much she loved me. I don't know if I believe that, and I think she just finally realized that he was nothing but a homewrecker. I'm so lost and confused now. I can't just ghost her because we have a daughter together and also almost 20 years of history, but at the same time, I can't stop obsessing and I just want the pain to go away. We've been intimate quite a few times since her affair ended, but every single time I can't help but to think that she's comparing me to him. I want her to tell me the details of what they did in the bedroom, but she won't. She says it will only hurt me more. I tried to explain that once I know everything, I won't have any more questions. I keep obsessing and asking questions and she's getting annoyed by it, but I don't know how to make it stop. Please, please, please do not get back together with her. Most likely her AP dumped her and you are the safe port in a storm. She wants you back for reasons that have nothing to do with love. She shoved your face into the affair, disrespected you in the worst ways possible, and became indignant when you went through her phone. What you saw in those pictures is the woman that she still is or has become. You may be married to her legally, but who she is now is not the woman that you married. Things may be good for a while. There will be hysterical bonding for a while, and then you will try to put back together the marriage that you had. Within a short period of time, red flags will start to appear. The first is usually the guarding of the phone, followed by late calls and texts in the middle of the night. There will be trips to the supermarket that end up taking up to 5 hours, and then will come the trips out of town, and getting together with girlfriends for a few drinks and not coming home till 5 a.m. You have been through this once already. Why do you want to go through it again? The fact that she let you take your 9-year-old daughter without a fight so she could indulge in her affair tells me she's either a sociopath or full-blown psychopath. You're not in love with her, You were never in love with her. You were in love with the avatar she projected in lieu of her true self. An illusion. And as tempting and comforting as that illusion may have been for you, it's been shattered, and you can spend the rest of your life cutting your fingers on the shards as you try to put it back together, or you can move forward. You sound like a decent person. I guarantee you can find someone better. If not for yourself, do it for your daughter. She deserves to have a decent role model in her life. Wife of 17 years cheated on me with close friend. We have 4 young children. Need advice on what to do as I am a total mess. Please help me. I've been living in a nightmare for more than 2 weeks now. I don't know what to do and am absolutely desperate for advice, which is why I'm posting this. I'll start at the beginning. Apologies for the long post. My wife, 41, has been having an affair with one of my best friends. I would call him my second best friend, for a year. We have 4 children, 2 of whom are autistic, and we've been married for 17 years. She is Canadian but lives with me in England on a marriage visa. My wife and my friend have been getting very close for a few years now, as they have shared interests, for example going to the theater together, going to comedy clubs, drinking, partying, etc. They are both extroverts and enjoy having a good time, whereas I am more introverted and prefer to stay at home. He also has children, 2 boys aged 8 and 12. And our families have known each other and been incredibly close for about 14 years. My wife and I have had a great marriage. We have always felt that we were meant for each other. However, over the years, I've sometimes had a few problems performing in bed, which my wife usually responded quite negatively about, which made me feel worse about it. I'm probably also not quite as overly affectionate with her as she would like. I am definitely affectionate, compliment her, buy her flowers every so often, etc. But I know that she would want more than I give her on this front. Otherwise, our marriage has been genuinely fantastic, and I am in shock that this has happened. About 2 weeks ago, I saw a message pop up on her phone that she'd left on the couch. It was from my friend saying how beautiful she is and how is still thinking about the last time they were intimate. When I saw this message, I was so confused and shocked, and I kept trying to convince myself that it must have meant something else. But because I was suspicious, I checked her Maps timeline data that night while she was sleeping, and there was very damning evidence. The following night, I mustered all my courage and challenged her about it. She denied it over and over, gaslighting me, and then I showed her my evidence, and only then did she finally admit it. I begged her for the full truth, and she gave me a version of events that was, I later found out, very watered down. It took about 5 more days to get the full story, and that was mainly from my friend who'd decided to come clean with me and his own wife, who I had to tell, and she had no idea either. She was absolutely devastated, screaming, crying, etc. All in all, they had sex 7 times, with the time between the 5th and 6th time lasting about 5 months, and the whole affair lasting 13 months. They also kissed, held hands, and did much more whenever they had the chance of privacy in between, even when the families were together. It's also worth saying that their affair started about a week after I found out that my mom had been diagnosed with cancer and would need some invasive treatment, surgery, chemo, etc., and therefore I was scared about the prospect of losing her. My wife's dad died a few years ago, and so did my friends, and I of course stood by them both and supported them fully during this. It also turns out that she had told my friend and his wife about my performance issues, and that she had called me dull and boring. All this talking behind my back also really hurt me, as I'd never said anything about our sex life to anyone and never said anything bad about her behind her back. On the contrary, I have been her biggest supporter. The boring comment upset me because I work really hard for the family, and I'm involved in a lot of community and political work, which I feel is anything but boring. But I suppose she meant in the sense of not enjoying clubbing, drinking, partying, and being mediocre in bed. Now I don't know what to do. Should I separate from her, divorce her, or try to reconcile and fix our marriage? She wants me to go to therapy and for us to go to couples therapy, both of which I've agreed to. I'm scared to separate, and especially divorce, because it would devastate my children, who are still quite young, 5, 7, 10, 12, and my 2 autistic children would find the changes to their lives particularly distressing. I am also worried about living a lonely life. I'm the kind of person that needs a partner around them as I get lonely fairly easily. I worry about things like getting ill alone or having an accident. I'm also 45 years old and not particularly attractive, whereas she is very attractive and would probably find someone else much more easily than me. There's also the fact that I still deeply care for her and I already miss the life we had so much. The kids still don't know anything and we're still living together, but our marriage is only what I can describe as in limbo. She assures me that she has never cheated on me with anyone else, although she does admit that she can drink too heavily sometimes when she is out, to the point where she is flirting with other people, but she maintains that she knows never to cross the line. And that it only happened with my friend because they developed a strong closeness over the years. But she is telling me that he will never speak to him again, that she's desperately sorry, and that she wants to be with me. So, I need advice, desperately. I'm a total mess and just don't know what to do. Should I work on the marriage for the sake of stability for the children and the hope that we can get back to where we were before and to avoid the fear of being alone? Or should I separate and/or divorce, which would have been financial consequences for me also? I've only given the abridged version here, so if you have any questions about any of the details or anything else, then I'll try to elaborate. Thanks so much.